Thank you. All right, welcome to the February 2nd meeting of Mayor and Council. And Madam Deputy Clerk, could you read the opening statement?
You ready for me to read it? Mine's breaking up, so it's hard to hear.
Yeah, Dawn, if you could read the opening statement.
Okay, sure. Notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act and state regulations governing remote public meetings, including the time, date, and location of the meeting, concise instructions to the public for accessing the meeting and making comments. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Could we do roll call?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, Dawn, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Don.
Oh,
Where are you?
okay, I can hear you now, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so are you ready for roll call?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Yeah,
We can hear you.
Dawn, go ahead and do the roll call.
Okay, I got kicked off and now I'm back. So,
Okay.
Ms. Pearl-Lambros?
Here.
Hello?
Here, Don. It's Michelle.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
I didn't hear anything.
Yes,
Mr.
I'm
Cohen?
here. I'm here. I guess we can blame it
Ms.
on the snow, right?
Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Williamson?
I'm here. For the record, I'm in the process of
Mr.
traveling. If you can hear me, everyone, I'm in the process of traveling, so I'm going to keep my video off because I may have some connectivity issues. But I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, I hear you. Ms. Sachs?
I'm here.
Mayor Frida?
Here. Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of the December 30th minutes. Is there a motion? Leticia? Leticia has moved that. David
Second.
seconds. Thank you, David. All right, any questions or comments on the minutes? If none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the ayes have it. That's everyone. That's approved. Next up would be announcements and reports. Do any of the council members have any announcements or report? Leticia?
Just a quick announcement. The permit parking task force met and we've settled on a date for our virtual community meeting in the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. And this is just a follow-up to bring the community up to date on what the task force has worked on to date and what we're considering for a proposed pilot program. The date will be Saturday, February 20th, starting at 9 a.m. and we'll be sending out more details as we get closer to the meeting. That's it.
Thank you. Eve?
I have two announcements. First, I'd like to acknowledge on behalf of Mayor and Council that February is Black History Month. And the YWCA has a full listing on their calendar of all the events that are happening throughout town. And we hope in the Mayor and Council's newsletter to highlight some of those as well, so that people know there's really a wealth of things going on for your edification and enjoyment. I also want to give a little plug for an award that the Princeton Public Library received. They received a five-star rating from the Library Journal. And The rating system recognizes public libraries throughout the United States. There are more than 5,600 libraries, and only 262 received 3 or more stars. Our library in the size category that it is received the 5th highest score in the country and was the only one in New Jersey to receive 5 stars. So I just want to recognize our wonderful community partner institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Other council members with a report or announcements? Before we get to the police report, are there any other staff reports?
No, Mayor.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, next we could have the police chief.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good to see everyone again. Tonight on the agenda, we have 2 police reports from November and December of last year. The reason why there's 2 is just sometimes with the collection of data, the way it falls with the meeting schedule, sometimes we get the second one available. We just kind of put it together just to keep ourselves on track. When you look at the 2 police reports for November and December, very similar to what we've been seeing the last several months with the data collection. The numbers remain relatively lower than normal because of the pandemic, obviously, and the limiting of our interaction. So one number that we really keep track of, which kind of seems to be indicative of every other number that we track as well, as our calls for service. If you look at by the last almost year's worth of data collection, our calls for service have hovering been around 2,000, which is about half of what we typically see. So now you'll see that number carry over to a lot of the other categories as well. So it's pretty much, the ratio is pretty much even across the board with the data collection. But just to kind of keep you in the loop with some of the other items that we've been focusing on in the police department, one that came across your meeting schedule the other day was the MDTs. So with the approval of the purchase of the MDTs, we went ahead and placed the order. It's about a 30-day process for them now to make the MDTs.
Chief, sorry, could I interrupt for a second? Could you just spell out for the benefit of those in the audience who don't know what an MDT is, what it is?
A mobile data terminal. So it's the computer inside all the patrol vehicles that basically run all the operations from the communications center with all the different databases as well. So it's like the key components, the motherboard of the patrol car. So those are being replaced with council's approval at the last meeting or a couple meetings ago. But it's about a 30-day process for them to build it. Upon that completion, we'll get them. Then we'll start the installation process. Once that's completed, then we can go ahead and move forward with the installation of the new in-car cameras that was approved a few months ago. It was this upgrade that we were waiting for in the mobile data terminals before we could do the in-car cameras. Once we get to that completion, we'll then have ability to use the evidence tracking system within the department that comes with the purchase of the in-car cameras, which is then also the same one that the county uses for the prosecutor's office, which will make things a lot easier within the police department, for court, and for the public when it comes to discovery purposes. They don't have to come in for any collection of whatever the evidence may be. We can send it out electronically through that. So it's kind of a big endeavor. It's a large task to have the MDTs and the camera and an evidence system kind of going all at the same time. But it's obviously happening in stages. So we're in the midst of that, and we'll be glad when we get through that. In way of an update for recruitment, as of this afternoon, we were at 409 applications. Again, it's going to be a rolling process. We're not going to put an end date to it. We're going to keep the process open. We don't want to miss any good candidates just for an arbitrary end date. We were supposed to start our interviews this past Monday, but obviously with the storm, we had a delay, so they will start actually tomorrow. It's a multi-level process with interviews. Tomorrow will just begin the first day of stage 1, where it's a very quick introductory interview. After that, it will continue to progress through the process. And we discussed this at public safety. They'll be part of the interview process as well. In the way of marijuana legislation, we still haven't heard anything from the Attorney General's office. I imagine it's still on the governor's desk. So once that gets signed, the Attorney General then will codify his requirements for all of law enforcement in New Jersey, which will then trickle its way down through the county prosecutor's office and then ultimately to all law enforcement agencies in the state. And again, we've talked about this at public safety about once that comes through, taking a look at our policies, the impacts that it's going to have within the police department, the community, and making sure that we put out some public service announcements to address the new law so everyone is well aware of where they stand now in accordance with the governor's and the legislature's policies. Also, we realize that with the pandemic that our addressing of motor vehicle violations obviously hasn't been what it was in the past to limit contact. We recognize right now we're taking a lot of other different means in order to address that with decoy vehicles, variable message boards. And also now we're going to start, just to kind of put it on your radar, it's not out yet, but just to be aware, a bit of a traffic safety pledge. So we are having produced, they look like bumper stickers, but they're a magnet. And we were going to ask members of the community to come forward to take a traffic safety pledge, to pledge to obey all traffic laws and especially speed laws. And then we will provide you with this bumper sticker or the magnet. And it recognizes not only the person taking the pledge, but also, as we discussed, all the operators of that vehicle agree to take that pledge as well. It's something that it was discussed a little while back, and there's some national programs, but we're kind of putting our own little Princeton twist to it as well. So hopefully that'll be ready to go in about the next month or so. In regards to the COVID vaccine, initially, when we did a poll within the department, we had about a third that were very interested in getting vaccinated right away, a third that were still had some questions, and another third that were not ready. About right now, at this point, we're at about half of the department has received their first dose of the vaccine. So we look at that as we're progressing in the right way. I think as the vaccine becomes more readily available, you're going to see a lot more people in the police department become a little bit more comfortable with the idea. So we're expecting that number to increase as well. A bit of a public service announcement here. We are looking for crossing guards. We have lost several crossing guards recently, mainly because of the lack of stability in the schedule, because of obviously the pandemic and schools going virtual. It's a bit unstable for people looking for that steady income. So we have lost a few crossing guards. It's putting a tremendous strain on the police department, where we're finding days where we don't have anyone available on the road because everyone is covering a school crossing. So we will start our advertising. It's not an easy position to fill through advertising. A lot of it we find is really through word of mouth. So, sorry, Mia, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just while you're on the topic of crossing guards, I had some outreach from some crossing guards who were wondering about if there's any flexibility, because often now they're expected to be at their post on days when school is closed and the weather is particularly cold and uncomfortable, and there were some questions about whether there was any point, whether there was any flexibility. I don't know anything about how the crossing guard system works, but I'm just wondering if there's, is it absolutely necessary for them to be there on days when, because school is closed, there's no traffic?
No, I'm not sure why they feel the need to be there when school is closed. When school is closed, the crossing guards wouldn't be there. What we're finding, or at least what I'm being told, and I hear, is that because of the rec department's on a little bit of a different schedule because of COVID, and they usually help us out. So we've lost some people from rec department just because of scheduling. But some of our regular crossing guards who look at it for steady income, because of the change in schedules with the school, having gone to, sometimes they're in school, they're on a hybrid, or they're full remote, there's not consistency in in the crossings themselves. So they wouldn't need to be there though when school is closed. That's probably part of the issue, is that they're not getting the consistent school crossings.
That's what I meant, like, because of the, hybrid schedule, I guess there are some days in which the school is closed in the schedule.
Right, right.
Anyway,
On Fridays.
I guess we can direct them to follow up with you directly for questions on
Yeah,
that.
that'd be good. They could reach directly out to Sergeant Murray, who oversees the
Right.
crossing guards.
Okay.
But honestly, we're always in the need of crossing guards, so we can almost make this announcement, every couple of months. So, but in your travels, if you happen to come across anyone that may be looking for, just a little bit of a part-time employment, if you could please direct them our way, we could certainly use that help. Just a way of an update with firearms. Again, we talked a little bit about this at Public Safety. We still are in the process of finishing our 2020 applications for firearms permits. The last time we looked, just the other day, we were at 259 gun permits in Princeton went out so far in 2020, which is probably about quadruple of what we normally see. And we've had 211 total applicants apply, and we're probably around satisfying 190 of them. So we have a few more to get through. And lastly, I'd be remiss without saying that today was the anniversary of the death of Officer Walter Harris. I'm sure a lot of you do know the story, but just briefly, Officer Walter Harris was a member of the Princeton Borough Police Department. And back on this date in 1946, he was off duty, and he responded to a gunshot sound in an area social club. Upon entering the club, he got into a fight with some of the patrons in there. And as a result, he was unfortunately shot and killed on this date, 1946. So we remember him every day this year, or on this date every year. We remember him by all the officers draped their badges. We have a memorial out front of the town building that was dedicated to him in 2015. And every year we have just a brief ceremony where we lay a wreath with our honor guard on his memorial. Typically, it's a little bit of a larger event. Obviously, with the pandemic, it's a little bit on a smaller scale. We reached out to the family. Again, every year we express our condolences to them, and every year we honor his sacrifice and remember his life as an officer with the Princeton Police Department.
Thank you, Chris. David?
Yeah, Chief, I just have a request. Looking through the reports, I noticed that the crash data doesn't offer year over year tracking as opposed to a lot of the other data that you're showing, which shows the previous year and this year.
Yep.
And especially because I think we're going to be starting work on a Vision Zero policy for the town. It's going to be important to be able to track how we're doing with crash data. So I'd just like to request if you could.
I noticed that the other time too, kind of going through it. When you compare it to the other, everything is year to year, or at least that month to that month.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll put that together.
Super. Thank you.
Yep.
Leticia?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief. Great report. I don't have a question, but I wanted to give you and the department props on something that's not in the report, and that is the meeting that we had today. There were members of the ACLU New Jersey and of New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice that had reached out wanting to meet with you and regarding Princeton's trust directive, not just Princeton's, but also the one that came from the state. And it wasn't, and just to let our colleagues, my colleagues know, and also members of the community, the meeting wasn't to ask or question what it is that we're doing in Princeton, but also because we're doing things right, they wanted some guidance and information about how we're doing things so that they can then take note and make recommendations to other departments throughout New Jersey on how hopefully do things right and follow Princeton's example. So I know this is something that started with Chief Sutter, but you're continuing, and I just wanted to give you props for that.
Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you so much.
Any other council questions or comments for the chief? Thank you, Chief. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Chief. Thank you.
Okay, just one last shot. Any other council or staff announcements or reports before we move on? All right, hearing none. Deanna, are you going to start us off on the PSE&G presentation?
I am. Thank you. Sorry about that. A little slow down in getting technology. Mark, could we bring in Kelly Roy, Frank Lucchese, and Rosalie Serapiglia from PSE&G from the attendees? Thank you. So while they're joining, just to give the rest of council an overview, in 2019 and 20, PSE&G completed the first phase of the gas system modernization program in Princeton. At the time, I think they worked on about 4 miles of pipeline within Princeton, and that fell on municipal roadways, county, and state roadways. There is a new round in the gas system modernization program. And so we have Frank, Kelly, and Rosalie here from PSE&G to give more information to council. I think I mentioned at the last council meeting that we will be holding a public information center later in February with the Riverside neighborhood, which is part of the first work that will be undertaken this year in this program. And as they move into the work in the downtown, most likely we will have another public information center for that area as well. So with that, Frank, I'm just going to turn it over to you. And if you could give everybody background on the program and talk through this year's program, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. It's good to be here. My name is Frank Lucchese, and I am the Senior Public Affairs Manager Kelly's putting up the slides here for PSE&G. And thank you in advance for the opportunity to present our gas system modernization program and the upcoming work scheduled for Princeton Township. So before we present, I want to just introduce, and you'll see him on there, our team from PSE&G. Kelly Sutter, who you're going to hear from shortly, is our project manager. She oversees the GSMP work, and she will do the presentation today on the project. In the backdrop, even though they're not on the screen, Chris Carfs, who's our PSE&G construction manager, he will be doing the construction oversight. Charles Wheatley, our senior supervisor, he's directly involved in the day-to-day operations of the project. And then you see Rosalie Serapiglia, who's a manager of our gas system outreach. So we have a big outreach part of the process. And her group interfaces with the residents, our customers, making sure they're up to date and well informed of the project, well in advance and during the construction. I just have to say at PSE&G, we're committed to keep the power system safe and reliable. and we're taking very prudent measures in maintaining safety as our #1 priority. As Deanna mentioned, one of our significant upgrades to our infrastructure is the replacement of cast iron and bare steel main under our gas system modernization program. We eloquently call it GSMP, acronyms for everything. But the first phase of replacement started under our GSMP1 program, which was around 2016. Deanna kind of alluded to it. Actually, Deanna, we did about 7 miles of replacement in Princeton, 600 new services to the customers, our residents, right? So under the GSMP2 program, and this program will run until, it's 5 years, runs until 2023. So with that, PSE&G will be replacing old cast iron bare steel mains in your streets with new high-tech piping. And this is in an effort to, again, continue the safety and reliability of our gas system that I mentioned before. Last note before I kind of turn it over to Kelly, I did 2 things. Mayor and council, we've had a great working relationship. Deanna's fantastic. Your whole engineering staff is great to work with, and we've had a great relationship with Princeton PD as well. So that relationship continues as we do the work. Just one last note, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, I just want members of council to know that maintaining the safety of our customers and our employees and their families, PSE&G workers, PSE&G contractors, we follow strict safety protocols guided by CDC and the New Jersey State Department of Health, as well as directives from the governor's office. Obviously, we're deemed essential when we're doing this work, but we really do follow those protocols. So I just wanted to just open up with that and just thank you in advance. I'm going to turn over, Kelly's got the presentation up. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Kelly, who's going to give you the specifics of the upcoming work. And just one last note, Mayor, as you know, I'm your liaison through PSE&G. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you and continue the relationship with Princeton Township. So turn it over to Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Deanna. Thank you for your time tonight. Just to continue with what Frank said, we are project related that we're going to speak to tonight is related to GSMP2, the Gas System Modernization Program. It's a statewide initiative where we're identifying the aging gas infrastructure based off the type of material that's in the ground, meaning cast iron or bare steel. And then we do an overall assessment model on the amount of leaks and breaks on those systems. And then they're actually ranked by priority throughout the state. So like we talked to historically, we've done about 7 miles to date that ranked in that overall state model. And now this is the next phase, next 2 phases that we've identified within the city of Princeton. So right now we have 2 maps that are identified, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But again, just to hit on what Frank said, the benefits of this program is to upgrade those aging infrastructures, reduce the leaks, reduce the methane emissions, reduce costs for customers by us bringing in higher pressure to these mains, with increasing that to the areas that allows the residents to utilize those high efficiency appliances and see those savings where they can, and they're able to use those appliances in their homes. Again, we're enhancing safety, reliability throughout the system. And the larger part of the project too is that we are relocating meters from the inside of the homes to the outside of the homes. This is a safety feature. By doing that, it brings the mechanisms to the outside of the house. We're able to have a shutoff valve between the outer of the house now and the curb stop for emergency type situations that we would be able to stop if there was ever a leak. We can stop that at the curb now, and we have different shutoff options along. That's part of this GSMP2 program as well. So I'll just go on to the next slide. Okay. So this, I know this is going to be really hard for the team to see. In a second, I'll just share another map so we can get in a little bit closer. But the first phase in Princeton that we're looking to start is anticipated to start March 1st, pending final approvals, pre-con meetings with the police department, the engineering department. But there's been about 8 miles of work in this phase 1. identified with approximately 843 services. So it's impacting about 26 streets overall. As Deanna mentioned, the two major thoroughfares within this first map are Riverside Drive, basically the entire extent of that from Nassau to out to the other end of Route 27 Nassau, as well as Prospect Ave going between Harrison and Route 27 Nassau as well. We would like to start this project in March, like I said. It's about 7 months of work. We anticipate starting in March and going through the end of September, early October. Different things that could cause delays or allow us to pull the project in would just be weather, items of that nature, working with police due to any traffic controls. So if you give me 1 second, I'll just switch over to my other screen. I apologize. If everyone can see that, that's just a closer look to the project that we were talking about. Just the bolded areas in red are what I just spoke to. So starting up here on Prospect is where we're looking to start the project. The first phase 1, that comes all the way down Prospect, all the way out to Riverside, and then it continues down out to Harrison. And then again, this area of Riverside Drive extending. And then all the subsequent side streets would be done after we get this red bolded area completed. These side streets are the, will come after the major pushes on the red streets. So just to kind of give you a visual, I know it's hard to see. We could share these maps with everyone after the meeting if anybody wants to see that detail in, more up close.
Kelly, I've actually already put them on the municipal website.
Okay, great.
Yep, we've created an infrastructure page, and
Okay.
we have the map and the list of streets that are included.
Okay, great. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint. I apologize. Okay, and it's just something else I just wanted to know. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, just to put so everybody understands, like we said, it's the aging infrastructure. For this first phase 1 that we just discussed, the pipe that's in the ground right now, it ranges, it was originally installed between 1954 and 1965. So it's, it has significant age on the map and the area that we're going to be working on. So now just to talk to phase 2. So phase 2 is another 4.5 miles. It's about 1,234 services. It's impacting about 59 streets. And the vicinity that this work is concentrated in is basically north of Nassau Street going up to Mount Lucas Road. Again, the bolded areas, I know it's tough to see on the screen right now, but you'll see the purple areas, the red areas, and the black bolded areas. So we are aware that, this street is a highly condensed area, is your downtown area. There are a lot of businesses, restaurants, establishments. So this will be phase 2, and we aren't looking to start this area and this work until probably late June timeframe. Again, we are working very closely with Deanna and team. We're trying to mitigate any concerns ahead of time with the businesses, the downtown district area. We're looking at options to work nighttime versus daytime, which would be outside of their business hours. And then any work that we would look to do, we are aware of the timeline where we wouldn't be working after that Thanksgiving time period in those areas. So again, I know it's really high level. We will be having another meeting with the engineering department. Our intent is to have a very, very, very worked out outreach process for the businesses. Again, we would set up a separate meeting outside of the one that was referenced earlier ahead of starting any work in this phase 2. But just as a quick look, if we started in the June time frame, we would probably have to do this work until March of next year. So it's an extensive time frame, and again, more meetings to come, more information to come. We're aware of the sensitivity with the business needs.
Kelly, can I just ask a quick question about this?
Sure.
Phase 2 not only includes our central business district, as you pointed out, but also residential areas around Walnut, Dempsey, et cetera. And I'm wondering if you have a single meeting, if the concerns of the residents are going to have an opportunity to be, they're quite different from the concerns of the downtown businesses. And not to tell you how to do your job, but I wonder if maybe, like, I live in the Riverside neighborhood, right in the middle, right near that intersection of Riverside and Prospect.
Right.
Those people in the residential area, I mean, does it make sense to send them to that first meeting, or to do a separate meeting with them so that?
Right. So no, we want to do a separate meeting, Eve. That would be our intent for sure. I think the first meeting has to be localized to the first phase 1 with the Riverside residents. And then what we would do is looked up to set a second outreach open house meeting for the residents of the phase 2 area. We've actually internally discussed the option to not only have a meeting for the residents, but potentially just for the business owners as well, just so we can focus so it could be 2 more meetings after the fact, but we do think that that may be best because obviously, like you said, there's going to be different interests from the residents versus the businesses. So that's what we're working on. We will run anything by your team, Deanna's team, before we set anything up, firm in the schedule and kind of go over agendas and what our intent would be of those 2 meetings. But we would, in short, like to keep them separate and have this first meeting on the 25th focused on phase 1 residents.
David, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, somebody already addressed this and I missed it, but can you give an idea of how much of this work requires complete road closures? How much requires, partial closures with traffic direction, sort of one-way traffic, and how much can be done without totally without too much disruption?
Yeah, so on our initial meeting with the engineering department, Jeff Maurer was on as well, and we discussed potential road closures and kind of trying to get ahead of all that. So we will have to close Riverside and Prospect different segments as we move along due to the equipment size and the width of the roads. The roads will always be open to local residents to get to their houses, but we will have to detour down, right now we're finalizing those detours with the police department, and they would be, we would get that information out ahead of time. I don't have specifics, where the detour routes will go, but right now we would have to work around that Riverside area where we're starting first, Prospect, I'm sorry, and then most likely keep the main traffic going down probably Nassau Street would be the intent. So we can give you more detail as we get closer and we build that out with the police department. But again, our intent is to keep it open to local traffic, keep trash pickup, keep recycling going, but the non-resident, local residents would have to be detoured off.
Thank you, Michelle.
I was going to just add in, we anticipate that the contractor can work within about 600 feet a day, correct, Kelly?
Right, correct, yep.
That would really be the closure area that we would be working with at any one time.
Correct.
Thank
And then
you.
for the side streets, obviously we would keep them, again, it wouldn't be, they would not be shut down 100%, but again, to local traffic, correct.
Okay, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure that Deanna is going to plan to work on this together, but there's so much construction happening too in the central business district over the next several years. I'm just, we're obviously all very concerned about what the time frame would be and how to set that up so that we'd have the least amount of disruption. So I appreciate the fact that you're already talking about taking the initiative and talking with the business community. I would just hope that we can come up with the best timetable, taking where we are right now, COVID, and the situation with outdoor dining, needing probably to go through to the fall with that, and see how we can coordinate so we can best, have the least amount of disruption possible.
Yes, understood. And like you said, we are working closely with Deanna. We've discussed options, what we need to look at well in advance of us starting out there. So we are giving it the time and, the assessment, and we're, doing everything to work with everybody for that least impact.
Great. And that my dog was thanking you too. Thank you very much. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that. And I'm sure we can work it out. And maybe some of this can be done simultaneous with some of the other construction, but I leave that to work out. So thank you.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna just, so just to move on through the presentation, I'll keep this short, but this is just kind of visual of the progress of our construction, right? So we would do first in the project, we would come in, we're gonna dig the trenches, install the new pipes, connect the services at the homes, and then restore the roads. So there are like the four main phases of our work. And again, this will be also presented when we have our meeting on the 25th with the residents to give them an opportunity to ask more specific questions about each phase of the project. Now I'm going to kind of go into the outreach that we have for these projects. Like we've said, we started this work overall back in 2017. So a couple years in now, we have a pretty thorough, robust program with our communication that we set up ahead of the projects, during the projects, at the conclusion of the projects with the residents, so that they have as much access to as much information, the opportunity to ask as many questions as they need. So the first part of our outreach is that ahead of the project, we have we have our own website, which is going to be communicated to all the residents through the literature that we hand out. But we maintain a website where the residents can go on, they can select the city of Princeton in the drop down, and then a street list comes up. And on that street list, it's color coded by the project status. So meaning that if their road is in progress, it would be blue. If their road is completed, it would be red. If their road hasn't started yet, it would be green. So this is like a first kind of option for the resident to go look on their own and see the status of the road. We also here on the website provide a dedicated hotline number for this work. So this isn't a PSE&G general customer service number. This number goes directly to us and is maintained by a specific outreach representative that's dedicated to our project work. We typically answer those calls within a 4 to 12 hour window. If it's overnight that the call comes in, they will hear back from us the next day. We track all those calls that come into our lines, and then we make sure that we track the response, how we've responded to the residents. We engage the town engineering department when we need, assistance in addressing any issues, and we really work together to address that. The next thing these are the physical door hangers that will be handed out to the residents. They're handed out at each resident ahead of the project. Our intent is to hand these out the week of the 15th for that phase 1 project that would start the first week of March. A little different for the door hangers this time is that they're going to have our standard letter, but they're also going to have a second letter, which is a letter advertising the open house on the 25th. So it's giving the opportunity for the residents to sign up for that in advance of that being held. So this is just our standard letter. Again, Deanna, I'm assuming you probably posted this to your website already, but this is a letter that we hand out in English and Spanish. It is updated with our new COVID literature, just explaining what we're doing due to the pandemic requirements. But this letter kind of goes over with the residents why we're in their town, what we're looking to do, gives them an idea of what they can expect up front in the project. And again, the phone number is provided to them. And again, these are just some sample materials. These are fact sheets that we'll have available for the open house, things that we can provide the residents as they ask more questions. But again, it's just going through the work phases and explaining what we're doing through each phase of construction. And then again, through paving. As you guys know, we do come back to restore the roads once proper settlement has taken place. And we can do the milling and paving of those roads. So we kind of go through this process all over again ahead of the paving once the construction side is done. And then this is an example of, so we do all this literature ahead of time to the residents for the construction. But another phase of our notification is when we're ready to actually do the service work at the homeowners' houses, we have to hand out these construction letters. And what we put on here is the information required to set up the appointment with the resident. So we ask them to contact a specific number. It's typically our PSE&G inspector that's out on the job. If the resident's not home that day, but this is left at their door, they would have to call us, schedule the appointment. And that appointment is about a 3 to 4 hour window when we would have to be there to remove, install the new gas service. They would have to come off of gas for that time period, and then they would be brought back up. All their pilots for their appliances would be relit before we left their property that day. So this is just a service hanger explaining that work. And this is just a restoration postcard. So this is new in our process over the last 6 months. When we are done the work, we're actually sending out postcards to the residents as well to let them know, yes, we're done on your street. You may see the temporary restoration, but we will be back to do the final restoration. It just kind of gives them that security and that information ahead of time that the road's not going to be left in a trench-like form. And then this is just more detail about our safety guidelines with COVID-19. Part of what we also do is ahead. So like I said, we're going to notify the residents via a physical door hanger the week of the 15th. But what we would do the Friday prior to starting on a road, we send out emails to the residents. So anyone that has registered their email addresses to their account with PSE&G would be getting an email ahead of that, ahead of their street starting. So what we do once the project starts is every Friday we look ahead. If we haven't notified and it's a new street that's starting, the residents would get an email notification ahead of us being on the road. Just kind of an intermediary reminder from that initial door hanger that they received. And again, just some, the contractors, PSE&G is providing signs to stake in the areas that we're working, just kind of reminding them that we are practicing the physical distancing due to the current COVID requirements. And then this is just an example of what our workers would be wearing out in the field as well. Both our contractor and our PSE&G employees. And again, like I mentioned, we have the dedicated hotline that is for this project and not just a general customer service number. So that number is all over everything. And then if Deanna is aware, having that number at the township buildings, when you're getting calls, we just ask that not to have to over explain. You can give the residents, you can give the customers that number, and we can take that burden off of the town having to answer those questions. But hopefully, with all the literature that we're handing out, that the residents feel comfortable enough to call us directly, and we can address that without having to burden the town with a ton of calls and inquiries.
And in addition to what Kelly's talked about with the notifications, their contractor and PSE&G will typically give us a 2-week look ahead. And with those 2-week look aheads, we will post that on the municipal webpage. So roads like Prospect and Riverside are very long roads. And so while they may start the project at one end, it may take quite a while for them to get to the other end of the roadway. And we like to give these intermediate updates on the website so people can keep track of the progress and know when they can anticipate that it's going to get near their home. As we found with New Jersey American Water working on Clover Lane, there were a lot of concerns about noise generated by the construction for residents that are working at home, as well as their students that are in virtual school. And so we just find that this is helpful to provide that extra bit of information to the residents on those streets.
And then I'm just going to switch my screen over just to show everyone the letter. I believe it's been posted on your website. I'll show everyone that. 1 second.
Kelly, I'm not sure that we've updated the forms from the last GSMP project.
Okay.
So if you can just send us all of the latest forms, we'll get those posted.
Of course. So can you see this now on the
Yes.
screen? I'm sorry. Okay. So this is what we are going to be hand delivering in the door hangers to the residents of that Riverside area that we talked about for phase 1. So basically it's just inviting them to the workshop on the 25th with some of the instructions and asking them to email us. So I believe we actually had an inquiry already come in. So we're working on that. Our website should be up and running tomorrow.
Me.
What was that?
That was me.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I'm glad. We just, I think, we were preparing to be ready for the week of the 15th. So we apologize for any, but Rosalie is working on that. We should have everything ready to go for tomorrow. So Eve, you can get my information from Deanna. If we need to discuss anything or you have any information you could share with us as residents begin to get these letters and we need to smooth out any transition with the information, please feel free to reach out and let me know. That would be great.
Likewise, I'm happy to help as well. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
I do
Okay.
have a quick question, if I can jump in, actually 2 questions. I wonder if as part of the materials that you show to residents on these information sessions, if you could have a photo of the PSE&G or contractor ID that they will have, because I keep hearing things about scams, people coming to people's doors and everything. So I think there's I don't know if a higher level of suspicion than normal, but there definitely is something that, I've read about. I think the police department has commented on that. And so if people just kind of got a visual of what they would be looking for, it's easy for someone to walk up to the house and say, here's my badge, but how do you know that that's a real, so I wonder if that may be one of the slides you could,
Yeah, so let me, what we'll do is I'll talk to our internal team. I'm not sure. Yes, we'll look into that. Let me see what our options are of what we, can display as far as the actual IDs, and then if, whatever we can do to assist with that, we'll get that information.
And the other thing, and this may be a bridge too far, is one of the communities in town that I think might have more difficulty with material in English might be people who read and write Mandarin.
Okay.
And I wonder is it possible to have like a link to a website or information where they could access the information in that language? I don't know if you do other languages aside from Spanish.
We do, and I'll let Rosalie speak to that. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, Councilwoman, we can certainly make a third letter, and if we have streets or if there's a ward where that would be prevalent, we can hand out English, Spanish, and Mandarin to that area. So now that we know about it, we can get to our translator and have our generic letter and workshop letter translated accordingly. The door hanger, I'll have to work on, Kelly. I've never had to have the service hanger translated, but we can figure out a workaround.
Okay. All right.
Leticia?
Yes, on that note, first, let me commend you on providing the outreach materials, not only in English, but also in Spanish. But I just wanted to comment, I don't know if you're actually using a service or because I did take a look at them and I found that there were a lot of things that didn't translate the way they were supposed to. So it seemed like perhaps someone had used Google Translate. I may be wrong, but it just was not all the translations were accurate. So I would just recommend perhaps using, if you can have a native speaker take a second look at your translations, just because there were some things that in reading it, myself reading it in Spanish, it was not accurate. It didn't translate accurately.
Well, Councilwoman, we do pay a professional translation service,
Wow.
and they do our letters and our door hanger translation. So we can certainly go back to them, and if you could point out exactly, where you're seeing these errors, that would be helpful. But
Yeah.
we don't use Google Translate. We do pay a service.
Oh, wow, that's surprising. But again, not a criticism. I applaud you for providing this information, but I just noticed that that not everything was translated accurately.
Okay, do we have other council questions or comments? Okay, I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. I also mentioned that when my neighborhood went through this over a year ago, that everybody on the street and everybody that came to our house was extremely helpful, extremely polite. And for the amount of work they do in a small area, it's amazing how efficient and how helpful they are to all the residents. So I assume that's going to be the same here. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you for that feedback. We really appreciate it. We don't hear that, a lot. We don't get to hear that at the end, but so thank you. We'll take that back to the team. And yes, that's our full intent for this project in this round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you,
much.
everybody, for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very
all.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay, next item on the agenda is public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anyone from the public that has a comment question? Okay, seeing no raised hands. Okay, the next item on the agenda is correspondence, 2021 Palmer Square events, and who is,
Mayor Frida, you have to close public comment.
I'm terribly sorry, Thorne,
That's
thank
okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment section of the meeting, and we will move into the correspondence. Jamie, is that you?
That's me. Hi.
There you go.
So good evening. Thanks for having me tonight. I come to you every year in February with our event calendar. This year, it's a little bit different. So before we even get into the events, I want to make a blanket statement that this is obviously very tentative. We plan on seeing where things lie. We work with the health department to make sure everything we do is within the guidelines and the regulations. And we're trying to plan for the year, but it's quite difficult not knowing exactly how we're going to stand. So this past year, we were very successful working with Jeff Grosser in the health department. We had our summer music series. We went through the fall. We had quite a few events that we were able to do safely, and we hope to do the same thing. So right now, we currently have the skating on the square open. We just applied to extend it through the end of March. It's doing quite well. We've had, I'd say, over 3,000 people come through for open skate, and that's not including the private parties. As of right now, we've had 48 private parties booked on there as well. So it's doing really well this year. People need something to do outside and safe. So being as the back of the hotel is not being used for weddings in March, we extended it through the end of March, and we've already almost booked up every weekend for private parties on there. The Palmer Square on Ice, in the past, we used to do big ice carving events. We went away from that because the skating was kind of enough, but this year I feel like we need something to increase the ambiance. So instead of doing a large ice carving event where we're going to carve ice all day long, we decided to spread it out through the month of February, and each weekend, Sunday from 12 to 2, we'll have live carvings going on, and they'll be interactive carvings so people can come up and like take pictures with them throughout the day. So it won't just be entertainment for that 12 to 2 time. Music was really successful, especially since there wasn't much else to do, but it just kind of, it helps the ambiance. It helps the, keep the square lively when people are shopping and walking around. We have to capitalize on our, open air center. So just kind of creating that whole experience. We had such success with it in the summer and the fall, that we decided to add it through the whole calendar. So as soon as it's warm enough for musicians to come back out, we'd like to start the spring music, a spring music series, and run it every Saturday in April and June. We were also approached by McCarter Theater. I love this collaboration because they're going to bring really talented professional shows to the square, as long as we can do so safely. So they want to do a concert series. They've thought to run it from 4 to 6 on Sundays, so people can come and shop, stay for a concert, and then hopefully go to dinner, and do more than just play the music. They're looking at May and June. We've discussed at length the fact that we might need to pivot and change. Right now we can say we're hoping May and June will be okay to have outdoor concerts on the green, but if it's not, we go back to the way we did the music in the fall, and we market it as, background noise and, the whole experience, instead of bring a blanket and stay for a concert. So, there's a lot up in the air with the way we would market it, but I love the fact that they're going to bring high-end entertainment, and they're looking at doing it for 8 weeks. So that's a nice collaboration there. Then we go right into the summer. So we'll continue with music in the summer. We are hoping that by the summer, we'll also be able to do our traditional events like the story time on the green, possibly bring back the dueling piano nights, as long as we're in a better place by then. And then the summer movie series, which is also outside on the green. The summer sale is a sidewalk sale. We stopped calling it a sidewalk sale because some of our stores were not allowed by their corporate offices to have a sidewalk sale, but they could participate in a big summer sale. So that's just another word for a sidewalk sale, which is a long weekend of sales. And then one of the things that I wanted to do was break down the very large events that brought in a lot of people for one day and kind of spread the wealth, so to speak. This gives us the perfect opportunity because we are looking at safety. So taking Music Fest in September, we do already have contracts signed with all the musicians that were supposed to play last year's Music Fest that we had to postpone till this year. So breaking it down, instead of having just one large festival in September, we could have the festival weekends, and every weekend we have a good band play. We can invite our tenants to come outside and have a table on the green, one food and beverage vendor each week instead of having 5 or 6 at the big festival. So each weekend there's kind of a little mini fall festival for people to come to, and hopefully it'll, spread out the foot traffic. So it's not all in one day, thousands and thousands, but hopefully a couple hundred. And I'm hoping we can have a couple hundred by the fall coming in throughout the weekends. So from the festival days, we would then have, typically in May, we do Girls Night Out. I don't think we're going to be in the best spot to have Girls Night Out this May. So we pushed it to the fall, hoping that will be okay. If we're not okay to have one large event where, thousands of women storm the square shopping and dining, then we'll also spread that out, and we'll do local line out shopping series like Thursdays through the fall. So we've kind of got a contingency plan for almost every event we've got on here. The fall music series, that was really popular this year. We also partnered with McCarter Theater this year, so we were able to bring it on both Saturdays and Sundays, which was great. So hopefully we'll do something like that again, and that would be through October and November. The flamenco dancing, which was a lot of fun. The flamenco dancing and music, we do that in October during the Hispanic Heritage Month. And that brought a great crowd the past 2 years. This year we didn't advertise it, but it still got a lot of passerbys excited, and we were able to put it up on the website afterwards. I would assume that the Arts Council will be back to having their Halloween parade, which we work with them. This past fall, we allowed our tenants to go out on the green and host their own kind of market days and tent sales. That went over very well, so we'd like to encourage that again. People like to shop outside and they get more visibility. So we would do that throughout and that would be on the same days that there's music and different things. So some of these would overlap. our tree lighting. We hope we can do it again in person this year. However, we did find we had 9,000 viewers from our virtual tree lighting, which was a lot of fun. People from all over the country, and it was great to see. They really enjoyed it, the ones that couldn't make it here for an in-person event. So I think next year will hopefully be live, but maybe we could live stream it so people can still participate from around the country, because that was, it was heartwarming to hear the stories of how people had memories here, and we were able to go into their living room. So we really enjoyed that. And then hopefully we'll be bringing back the skating again next year. This year we started it a little bit earlier. We'd like to start the beginning of November, and that would run through February of 2022. Holiday Jam, if we have it again like this year, that was put on the back burner because that's with Princeton University. We have trolley tours with Princeton Tour Company, our Menorah Lighting. We were able to have the Menorah Lighting this year in person. We worked with Jeff Grosser from the health department to make sure we did it safe, and they were very appreciative that we were able to have that event in person. That was one of the few events that we had in person. And then of course, just the strolling holiday entertainment, the Santas on the weekends. I think missing from this calendar, because it's not actually on the green, but just in general, strolling for everybody's knowledge, instead of having the egg hunt in the spring this year, we were going to bring in the bunny and different spring entertainment and have them strolling on the different weekends in March. So we would still have something festive, just not no actual egg hunt. And that seems to be the plan in a quick and tidy.
Thank you. Leticia.
Well, I think for many of us who are hungry for some in-person social events, this sounds great. I'm very optimistic. I'm feeling optimistic just hearing what you have planned. And what I was going to ask, for years, Princeton, as a member of Welcoming America, has observed Welcoming Week. And 2 years ago, Palmer Square actually hosted our culture sharing night.
Yep.
Last year, because of COVID, everything was virtual. But if things work out, I'm hoping that we'll be able to perhaps coordinate that again. This year, Welcoming Week will be observed September 10th through the 19th. And this is something that Human Services works with community partners to collaborate and set up events for that week. So I just wanted to put it in there that hopefully it's something that it was really well received when we had it on Palmer Square on the green, and hopefully something that we can revisit again if things work out.
I just wrote the dates down, so I'll add them to my internal calendar, and I'll make sure to reach out when the time comes. But
yeah, reach out to Melissa Urias from Human Services.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. Other council, Michelle.
I just want to thank you, Jamie, and your team. You do a great, fabulous job. And this past year with the challenges, you've really pivoted well and still maintained some really great events. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
thank you.
It's great.
Eve.
I just want to echo that. It's really impressive to hear you describe what you've done and what you're thinking of doing and how you've come up without just canceling everything, which is easy. You've really come up with alternatives, thought through, worked with the health department to, come up with activities. And as you were saying about the skating, people are just dying to get out of their houses. So I really appreciate that we have you, working on programs like this to, encourage people to continue to come downtown to shop and to, have a little break from the monotony of COVID. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
David.
I just want to put on your radar, last year, for the first time, there was going to be a fundraiser bike ride from New York to Philadelphia that was going to overnight in Princeton. It got canceled because of COVID, but it's been rescheduled for this year. I was just searching for my email and I couldn't find it, so I can't tell you the date. But if we're lucky enough to be able to host that event this year, we'd love to coordinate with you and offer some special activities in Palmer Square for the cyclists.
Oh, that would be great.
May 5th sticks in my mind, but I'm not.
I know Lisa Sariasol is is one of the attendees. She might know. I'm waiting for her to raise her hand. If she doesn't know, we'll get back to you on it.
We'll send you that. We'll send you the information.
She does
Oh,
have her hand
hands
up.
up.
Mark,
Lisa's hands up.
There it goes.
Good evening. The East Coast Greenways fundraiser event will be August 28th, overnight in Princeton, and departing the morning of the 29th for Philadelphia.
Thank you, Lisa.
And you're not
Fantastic.
relying on me.
No worries. No, May is a
May
little too
5th,
soon.
August 28th, what's the difference?
You had the right year, Eve.
Well, thank you.
Do we have anything else for Jamie? Okay, well, thank you again, and we do appreciate everything that's.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Help the town.
Thank you, everybody. I enjoy
Thank you.
working with everyone and downtown, so hope to see you all very soon. in
Thank you,
person.
Jamie.
Great.
Thank you.
Same here. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, Eve, I believe you.
Sorry, now I'm muted. Yeah, this item was put on it as a work session, and really it's kind of more of a heads up, an intent to move forward and on an idea. And I wrote a brief statement, and I'll read that and then see if there are questions or comments from council, staff, or members of the public. Although New Jersey residents voted to approve the legalization of cannabis back in November, the enabling legislation that will provide the details of legalization has not yet been passed. Still, we know that legalization is coming, and whether we were personally in favor or against legalization, we must confront the issues that will be raised as a result of legalization. My colleagues, Council President Fraga and Councilwoman Perrone-Lambros, will join me in working to establish a cannabis task force in the near future. We will be meeting to sketch out guidelines about which groups and institutions need to be represented to ensure that all viewpoints are included, and to develop an application for residents who want to be involved in the work of this group. We will work with professionals on staff, with our partner organizations throughout town, including those that focus on racial equity and social justice, and with our business community to provide recommendations in 3 areas. First, whether or not Princeton should opt to host or exclude a cannabis dispensary. Second, using the best data available and up-to-date science on the impact of cannabis use, recommending the most accurate and effective educational message for minors, adults, and senior citizens for this soon-to-be legal product. Third, working with our police and local prosecutor to shape, to the extent possible, Princeton's enforcement policies regarding underage possession and use, as well as enforcement of adult public use and driving under the influence. This is a work in progress. If there are other areas that the task force should look into, please contact us and let us know. Otherwise, we'll report back as we move along. And Leticia or Michelle, did either of you have anything you want to?
Michelle?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm sure Leticia does too. Thank you, first of all, to Councilwoman Niedergang for taking the lead and spearheading this initiative. It's really important. The Economic Development Committee has been talking about, what the benefits and all would be and the negative impact as well, and trying to weigh whether or not, we would want to have a dispensary. So having a broad focus and having a lot of voices heard and putting that together will be really instrumental. Something else I just want to throw out there, and it might be something for the task force to listen to and get some speakers, but I recently attended a conference last week on the equity issues and social justice of cannabis dispensaries. And there are programs out there, which was really interesting, for helping do like a franchise type of ownership participation that is really designed for minority owned cannabis dispensaries. So it might be something that if we did want to go down that track, we certainly would look for how we could help this as an economic development factor for minority-owned businesses. So I just wanted to mention that, and thank you. Thank you, Eve. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Eve. That was a really great report and represents what we've discussed already. I just wanted to add that we also discussed perhaps adding at least one member from specific boards, commissions, and committees. And we talked about Board of Health, and a member of our Civil Rights Commission would make sense to add perspective to what's being discussed.
Okay, thank you. So any member of the public that hears of this can contact any one of the three of you, and that'd be great. Thank you. Any other council members?
Yes, Councilman, disembodied voice of Councilman Williamson. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm traveling, so it wouldn't make sense for me to turn my video on. But just thanks to my council colleagues for the working committee that's being put together. I just wanted to mention that, of course, the Princeton Alcohol and Drug Alliance is planned to play a major role in whatever we roll out, because that's sort of our bailiwick. So, not sort of, it is our bailiwick. So we plan to be heavily involved. So yeah, it's good that we're starting to look at all these things, and we look forward to working to make sure whatever the outcome is favorable and in the best interest of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Eve.
I'll just add that we're starting to put together, that list of what groups are, and so far all those are on the list. But please don't hesitate to reach out. To some of the suggestions that I've heard so far have been things that someone suggested, Princeton Senior Resource Center to me, which was not something I would have necessarily thought of myself, but I thought that was a great suggestion. And since I'm the liaison, it's a little embarrassing that I didn't think of it myself. But anyway, so that you may have an argument or belief that a certain group that may not be obvious may have a stake in this in some way and want to contribute. So we really want to cast a broad net and get a wide diversity of opinion. And just to reiterate, or maybe I didn't iterate it, but just to state that there are no foregone conclusions. This is really a work in progress. We're going to look at facts, we're going to look at data, and move forward, on that basis. So.
Okay, Leticia.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that, as we've discussed, that we're just starting the conversation here. But as I know that it's already something that's already been implemented in other states, that at least from what we already know, that we don't know what it's going to look like. Even if Princeton decided that the consensus was that, yes, we were interested in allowing for a dispensary here in Princeton, that we may not have that option because most likely there's going to be limited licenses available. So it's very likely that other communities have already started this process that we're just not considering. So we may not even have that option, but it's still, it's still important to have that conversation.
Yeah,
Good point.
that's a great point.
Yep.
Leticia, we don't know exactly what the legislation looks like right now. So it's frustrating, but it's gotten to the point where, we feel we can't just sit around waiting for them to finish the legislation. So we're starting under a vast cloud of ignorance. So.
Okay, any other comments? All right, thank you. All right, moving on, we have an ordinance introduction next. David, are you close to this one or?
I am. I don't have the number and formal name in front of me, if you wouldn't mind reading that, but I will give an introduction.
Sure. Ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton regarding bicycle parking requirements for institutions of higher learning and amending Article 11 zoning in Chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Public hearing, February 16th, 2021.
Thanks, Mayor. So basically what this is, late in 2020, we passed a bike parking ordinance that established standards of numbers of bike parking spaces per square foot in general for different uses throughout the town. We were approached by Princeton University with an interest in having an alternative way of calculating their obligation, which was 4 parking spaces per member of the campus population, including employees, faculty, and students. And it seemed like a great idea. This is actually the way that bike parking requirements for institutions of higher education are handled in the Netherlands, which is sort of the gold standard worldwide for a bike-friendly policy. And the number that Princeton was proposing was right in line. In fact, I think it was a bit higher than what it is in the Netherlands, because there it's just based on student population. So we couldn't get the language nailed down precisely in time for that original introduction last year. So we promised to bring it back with some modified language, and that's what's being introduced tonight, is and this alternative method of calculating the obligation will be paired also with an annual report, basically telling what their population, the campus population is, and account of their bicycle parking, how it's distributed, and what, if anything, they need to do to make up for any shortfall that might exist. So that's the way that this would be enforced, as opposed to every time a land use application comes in. And the one other detail that I just want to mention is that as part of their obligation based on campus population, we are requiring that some number of parking spaces, some number of those spaces will be required to be in close proximity to dormitories, to residential uses on campus, just to make sure that the students really have good parking facilities, covered parking facilities, to the extent that they want them.
Thank you for that summary, David. And Eve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. The answer is pretty obvious, but just want to verify that the number you'll be using will be based on normal enrollment, not, COVID numbers.
So the ordinance does not address that. I hadn't thought about it, but my assumption is, the university has been so proactive and enthusiastic really about this. They're not going to go and take out 500 bike parking spaces because they don't happen to have a full student contingent on campus in one semester or another. So I don't think it's a concern, but if others do, I suppose we could address it.
Right. Kristen has her hand up, so we could bring her into the meeting, but let's just remember again, this is just an introduction and not the actual discussion of the ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Kristen Applegate, Director of Community and Regional Affairs. I just wanted to comment quickly for Councilwoman Niedergang. Our understanding was that this would be based off of our normal population, not off of what we hope is a very temporary situation on our campus. And I just wanted to comment to that. And also just to say thank you to Councilman Cohen. This has been a really productive conversation. We really appreciate the thought that went into pulling this together. And we think we came up with a better standard, quite frankly. We have a shared goal in encouraging more biking and walking in the community. So just wanted to express our thanks.
And thank you, Kristen. I assumed that was the case, but just double checking.
Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, seeing none. Next up, we have a resolution 21.
Mayor, you
Mark,
have to
sorry.
close the public and then make a motion to pass.
Sorry. Yep. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll close the public comment on this and also ask for a motion on the introduction. David?
I'll move the introduction.
Thank you.
I would like to second.
Eve has seconded it. All in favor, please say aye.
I think we need a roll call.
This introduction.
Right, and we have to be polled, yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Dwayne, can you hear us?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Okay, let's just make sure. Dwayne, that was a yes on introducing that ordinance, correct?
Yes, for the introduction of the ordinance, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
Yes.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on. Okay, Mark, are you gonna give us background on Resolution 2160? You're muted, Mark.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. The resolution before council is a resolution to approve an MOU, constitute the new contract between the municipality and the ASME labor union. The ASME labor union represents our employees. The only changes in the contract are monetary changes, which include a 1.75% increase in 2020, a 1.75 increase in 21, percent in 22, and a 2% in 23. In addition to that, there are provisions to create a career ladder for some of the employees within the union, which would be a market adjustment of $2,500 on their 5th anniversary. And then additional other employees receive a one-time benefit of a $500 market adjustment for equity purposes.
Leticia?
I just wanted to move to approve the resolution.
Okay, let me just read the full resolution just to make sure it's on the record. It's Resolution 2160, resolution approving the 2020 through 2024 collective negotiations agreement with New Jersey American Federation of State, Local, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1530, moved by Leticia, and I think Eve had her hand up to second that. Thank you.
Can I just make a brief comment, Mayor?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to thank our administrator, both for this successfully negotiating this contract and also our police contract. It's really a major part of the administrator's job to do this. And as we know, Mark will be leaving us, and it's great to have this done so that it doesn't fall on the shoulders of the next person taking over this role. So thank you again for getting this done, and I think very fair terms for both us and for the employees involved.
Any other questions or comments before we vote on this? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Dwayne.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Ayes by everyone. Okay, the consent agenda is up next. There's 4 items on the consent agenda. First of all, I just want to make sure no one has any objection to any of the 4, and I'll read them off. 2161 resolution authorizing the payment of bills and claims. 2162 resolution authorizing appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. 2163 resolution authorizing 2021 shared services agreement with Hamilton Township for health services not to exceed $4,000. 2164, a resolution authorizing adjustment of the sewer billing for B1-30.01 Lot 6 for the tax year 2020. If there's no question, Eve.
Oh, I was just going to move the consent agenda.
Okay, Eve is
I'll
moving
second.
it. David seconded it. Any questions? Not all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, unanimous on the consent agenda. I imagine we might have a close vote on the next item, but David, you can move it.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second on the adjournment motion? Seconded by Michelle. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you all. Thank you to the public for
Night.
joining
Thank
us.
you.
Everybody have a great evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night and
Good night,
stay
everyone.
Everybody.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Night.